Alright, today's tutorial is on unwrapping a horse, and um, there are a lot of times where we'll see this unwraps being turned into something of a, or similarly to a tiger's rock kind of spread unwrap. So this is what we are gonna do today. Um, so let me just go ahead and open up my horse file. Alright, so when we are doing unwrap for a horse or any kind of organic objects, some things to take note, or some certain things that you might find it easier, is to, whenever we create a seam or something like a line on an edge where we use a scissors to cut that edge itself, is called a seam, and we would always want it to be hidden from view. In most game development cases, you will see that this seams is tucked perhaps underneath the pit or the inner thighs or something like that. Alright, so looking at a horse, alright, the first thing that we are going to decide upon is where are we going to cut our seam. Alright, and most of the time I would really suggest to my students is that if your object, such as a horse or something much more complex like a dragon, you would always want to cut it into pieces. Alright, cut it into pieces, and then we will lay it out and fit them at the end of it. Because when your object gets too complex, it is difficult to unwrap and to look at it in a much more accurate perspective. And sometimes, or a lot of times, it is also much more difficult to tell where you can hide the seam, or how to operate, or where you would want to cut out your edges. Alright, so in this case, one of the things that I also would like to mention is, imagine if this horse is wearing a shirt, or how we humanoids wear a shirt. The buttons would fit below. Alright, so this is where the buttons are, and so this is where I will cut. Okay, so you can imagine this as this is the area where most of the time the viewers or the players or the audience are not gonna see and are not gonna notice. So in this case, let us just go ahead and let me show you how you can do this really quickly. So first of all, since I know that things below are gonna be cut, so any kind of projection, the very first initial projection, to make it much error free, or to decrease the chances of you getting an error, anything that you're gonna have a seam or a cut below, you want to do the initial projection at the opposite end. Alright, so in this case I'm going to do it from the top view. Okay, so I'm going to create UVs based on camera. Right, so this is what I'm gonna get, and initially this is my very first how my UVs look like. So when I create UVs based on camera, this is how it's gonna be projected into my texture editor. So some of the first things that I would always do is to just to scale it according to it, how it looks like. And of course, if you want to be much more accurate, you want to assign a new material. Okay, hit a lambert, and in your color, put on a checker. Alright, and in my checker usually I'll set it much higher than it is originally. Alright, so this is how it's gonna look like. From top it's gonna look perfect, but from the side it's gonna look a lot of problems, a lot of distortions. Okay, so like I've mentioned earlier, if this is a little too complex to look at, you would want to cut them into little pieces. So first of all, I would really want to do is to cut away the head. So you can select the edges. Okay, so I select the edges around the neck. Alright, the edges around the neck. And if you look at your UV texture editor, there is a scissors tool here, and it will tell you it separate the UVs along the selected edges. So that is what we are gonna do. We're gonna use click on our scissors, right, and click on our move UV shell. Select the UV, and I can take away the head. Alright, so I'm just gonna place my head somewhere. Okay, put it aside. And the next thing that I want to do is the tail. So same deal, because I want to do much more simple shapes. So I'm just gonna start with the torso, then the legs, then the tail, and then the head. Just like what you would usually see at a market or a slaughterhouse, where they would really cut the animal into pieces. So in this case, I'm gonna cut away the tail. So select the edges around the tail, select the scissors tool, cut it, and then right click and hold and go to UVs and take it out. Okay, so that will be my tail. And the next thing would be the legs. So select the edges around the vorlix. Maybe I'll just minimize that. Alright, now for the back. And inner legs. Alright, so I've selected the edges around the legs. Now to open my UV texture editor, hit my scissors tool and go right to my UVs, and I'm going to select my torso and move it away. Alright, so with my torso it will be a lot easier to look at. So just looking at the faces. Okay, so other thing that I forgot to mention, if you have this selected, the move UV shell selected, if you go to face, and you're not gonna be able to select the faces. So to get to toggle off your move UV shell, you need to click on your pointer tool or hit the hotkey P. Okay, so now go to face, and now you can select the faces. So with the torso alone, it's a lot easier to look at, and what I want to do really is to cut along these edges. Okay, because this is where I would want to cut along. Right, so from this point for this edge to the edge below the tail, okay, I am gonna use my scissors to cut it. Okay, so once I cut it, most of the time the traditional method was to really use your side projection or use your cylindrical projection to create your UVs. And for today, we are going to use another method. It's called the unfold method. The unfold method simply requires you to do a cut along whichever seams that you intend to hide, or whichever edges that you intend to open, and then use the unfold method to really lay out your UVs. So let's say once I have already cut the edges in the center, I'm gonna select all the UVs of my torso. Okay, polygons, unfold options. All right. Okay, if I were to reset it, and I'm just going to show you really quickly what unfold really does. So based on its default settings, okay, pin unselected UVs, alright, fine. I hit apply, and this is what it's going to look like. So it's just going to spread or lay out in a way that that looks or laid out really flat. That's not going to be have any overlaps. Okay, and just in case you might not you might be a little confused as to where I get my colors on my UV texture. This is a toggle. This is to toggle a shaded mode of your UVs, so that you can tell whether if there's any kind of overlaps. Okay, so you can toggle it on and off. So looking at these UVs, this is definitely not what we want, because what we want to do is really like a rug, like an animal's rug, where it has at least some sort of a mirror image, and this is not giving us that mirror image quality. So I'm gonna undo it. All right. So what happens if I crank up my weight solver and I hit apply? Okay, much better, but you can tell that there is still some irregularities around, so that's not what we want either. Okay, so to make Maya work, first of all, I'm just gonna turn my weight solver to 0.75. Again, this input you might want to really change according to your own settings. So usually I will use 0.25, 0.5, 0.75 just to do tests on it. So anyway, just gonna use 0.75, and I am gonna use unfold constraints. Okay, because by selecting none, it's gonna give you an irregular shape. So we need to force Maya to think that we are doing it based on each axis, so that it will give us a much more accurate unwrap or unfold. So we are gonna unfold it this way first, because this is the middle is where we cut. So in a way, we are pulling the edges across to one side and pulling the others to the other side. So I'm gonna use my vertical first. Okay, hit apply. Okay, perfect. It's gonna look like a mirror image, and then we're gonna use check on horizontal and hit another apply. This is so that it will average out the and lay out the UVs. Okay, so this looks much better. All right, so once you have this, you can select that and put it aside, and we will be working on the other parts of the body. All right, so the next thing perhaps I will work on is the tail. Okay, now for the tail, right? For the tail, I am going to open, since we have already opened up a seam or cutting across the belly of the horse. So this line itself should follow, okay, back to the tail. So it's really the inside of the tail to the end here. Okay, so as I have already mentioned, if I am going to cut it across here, so I'm just going to show you real quick why we need to do our initial projection from the opposite side of where we cut. So imagine this is where we cut, all right, and this is my tail. Cut it, and if I were to select my tail and do an unfold function, okay, so let's say I'm just gonna use my horizontal and my vertical, and it's gonna look like there's a huge, looks like a huge mistake Alright, so if I were to do it the opposite way, vertical first and horizontal. Okay, much better. But again, lots of overlaps, so not exactly what we want. So in this case, what we need to do is to, okay, first of all, select the tail from the UV texture editor. Okay, because this is so that we can get the faces within our viewport correctly. So in your UV texture editor, so right click and hold and select face, select these faces. I'm gonna go to my front view, or in this whichever case your side view or whatnot, and create a UV space on camera. Alright, so I get my tail and I'm gonna bring my tail out, and also need to really scale it to proportion. Alright, so I have this tail. The next thing that I need to do really is to select the edges. So I select the edges based on where I have already cut my seam along the belly. Right? Cut it, and now I can select the UVs, polygons, unfold. Alright, and this time around I am going to unfold based on the horizontal position. So hit apply, okay, and then select my vertical and hit apply. So now as you can tell, there is no overlapping and it looks perfect. So I can right now just turn it sideways, as this is really where the connecting part is. Okay, so I'm just gonna move it close to it and leave it there. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is the vorlix. Now with the tail itself, now you probably can tell that the legs are not gonna show really well in this initial projection. So again, I need to select vorlix, go to my side view, alright, create UVs based on camera, okay, to get the legs out. So once I have the legs, I am just gonna pull it out right here, and because I have 4 legs and I need to take them out, okay, so that I got 4 legs, and I'm just gonna spread them out a little bit, okay, so that I have enough space for to lay it out. So before I lay it out, I need to look at again the squares just to make sure that they are of correct proportion. So scale and make a rough estimate. Alright. So the next thing that I want to do is to create a seam right at the center. Now if I were to create a seam here, right, and if I imagine pulling this seam to either side, the hoof itself, okay, or the sole of the hoof is going to be a problem. Okay, this will be stretched pretty badly. So in this case, I will need to select this too as well. I need to cut this out so that it can be laid out much more efficient and without much distortion. So I'm gonna do the same for the rest of the edges. Alright. And probably it's a good idea to show you one leg first before I do the other. Alright. Okay, so I'm just gonna do the first hind leg. Okay, I'm just gonna cut it. Gonna look at where this piece of UV is. So this is the one. Gonna select this leg. Okay, unfold UV, and I'm gonna do it based on along the horizontal first. Hit apply, and then select vertical and hit apply. So immediately this is what I'm gonna get, which would prove to be quite fast, and I can really do it on all the vorlix at the same time. Alright, so my next one would be on this leg, and I'm just gonna show you really quickly what happens if I do not cut these two sides. Alright, so cut it. Okay, select the UVs, select polygons, unfold UV options, select horizontal, hit apply, select vertical, hit apply. So what's gonna happen here is I am not gonna get a very nice hoof here. This is where the base of the hoof is. Okay, so the sides here is gonna look pretty stretched. So if I look at this, you can tell the difference, right? I have a nice square here, but on the other leg, this is gonna look very distorted. So this is the reason why we need to cut an extra line there. Okay, so I'm just gonna undo. Okay, you can always cut it again, and then after you have unwrapped it once, you can cut it and unfold it. Okay, so after cutting that, I am going to cut it. Select the UVs, right click, polygons, unfold options, horizontal first, and vertical. Now, you might have a question on how the heck would I know which to come first, horizontal or vertical. So our initial projection is based along this, right? Based on the side. So if I were to cut across in the middle, that means I'll be pulling this piece of skin out and pulling this other opposite piece to the opposite direction. So this way, going sideways, this would be horizontal. If I were to pull it from, if I were to cut my seam here and pulling it from upwards and downwards, then that would be vertical. So this is how we gauge on where we would unfold whichever axis first. Alright, so I'm just gonna move on and just work on my front legs. Okay, so same deal, the inner legs and this side. Alright, cut it, and I'm just gonna do it one at a time, because at times when you have multiple selections, it might give you some weird unfolds. So I'm just gonna do it one at a time. Horizontal, vertical. Okay, select the other leg, horizontal, vertical. Alright, so the next thing to do is really to find out which leg is for which hole. But again, because this is a hole, and if I were to put, say for instance, if I were to put my leg here, there will be overlaps, right? So we need to cut this apart. So in this case, I am gonna select this edge here, this edge, this edge, and this edge. Okay, and hit my scissors key. Sorry, scissors command. Use my move shell tool, select the entire shell, and I am gonna do additional unfold. So in a way, you can always do additional unfolds if needed. So I'm just gonna hit maybe vertical first, really doesn't really matter, and then horizontal. Okay, so this opens up, and what we can do really is to move it. Okay, so I'm gonna select my UVs and just move this out. Now of course we are not gonna get a full mirrored projection if we were to put in the legs and whatnot, but again, so long the majority of our UVs is in that mirrored projection sense, the minor changes or minor non-mirrored stuff, it's always acceptable. Alright, so in this case, I am gonna find out which leg is for which part of the body. Okay, so I can select the edge, and I can tell, okay, so this is where it's gonna be located. So this leg here will be right there, and what I would always do is to rotate to 45 degrees. Okay, select the other leg. This other hind leg would be there, right? So just gonna rotate to 45 degrees again. Just make sure that the colors are the same, just to show you what I mean. If I select the shell and I hit flip, you can tell that the colors are different, right? So it's going to tell you that if this is the case, you would want to have the same color if possible. Okay, and again, just to show you what happens, let me just flip this back and probably use this guy instead. So let's say I flip it, okay, and rotate it this way, and if I were to look at the edges, if I hit this edge, oops, sorry, if I select this edge, it's going to show that it's at the opposite side. Okay, so it is not going to be correct. So what we want to do is to make sure that it's the same color, so that we can really just use our rotate tool and then just fix it along the line. Alright, so the next one would be this guy here, and I'm just gonna check the edges. This would be okay, it's gonna be up there. So select this guy, I'm just gonna move it up, rotate it to 45 degrees, somewhere like that, and this would be also 45 degrees. Alright, so before we have the fun part of putting that together, let us work on the head. Okay, so for the head itself, at this point of time we have 2 years, and even if we would cut it, again I'm just gonna give you a quick demonstration, because in this case we will need to cut the years away. And just to make sure that I did not do any other selections. Alright. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut it. Okay, select my UVs, polygons, unfold. Okay, and this time around this is looking based on how this is gonna look like, and because the cut is along the base, so it's just gonna pull up upwards and downwards. So I'm just gonna use it based on vertical first. Okay, hit vertical and then hit horizontal. And if I were to do a close-up, you can tell that the ears are all being overlapped, right? So what we need to do really is to cut off the ears and do it as a separate piece. Alright, so let's go ahead and select the ears. So I'm just gonna select around here. Okay, so like, oops, likewise, just so that I know I had the right selections. Alright, so after selecting the ears, I'm just going to cut it. Select the shell tool, go to UVs and move my head out so that I have my ears. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is to unwrap or unfold the head. So I'll select this. This is where it's based on what I have unwrapped on the torso. So it's just gonna move along this line until here. This is because this area here is where the mouth is. So again, like I've mentioned before, if I were to pull this outwards, this is gonna be distorted. Okay, so I will need to cut it from here. Okay, this is the additional cut, so that this is where I can put the mouth nicely. Alright, so cut it, select the UVs, alright, polygons, unfold, vertical, and then horizontal. Alright, and I can move it somewhere there. Okay, and of course at this point of time the head's squares are not exactly correct, so I will need to put it right there somewhere. Okay, and of course I can do additional cuts if I need to, because looking at this bit here, it's still a little distorted. Okay, I can definitely make do with additional cuts to make it look better. So it's really your call if you want to make additional cuts. Okay, so we have the head, we have the legs, the torso, and the tail. We need to work on the ears. So looking at the ear, one of the things when I do make a specific sim is to tell my students that you can always create a sim based on different textures. So if you happen to know that the texture or the color is gonna look different, you can always cut around that area. So if I were to look at a horse's ear, alright, the back of the ear and the inside of the ear is gonna look different. So I can always cut it based on that situation. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut it along the edges where it separates the the back and the inner ears. Alright, and before we go about doing that, we should really select the ear itself. Okay, because this projection is based on the top view down, so what we really want to do is based on where we can see the best or the most surface area of the ear. Okay, so based on the surface area, this is probably the best angle, so I'm just going to create UV space on camera. Alright, so this is what I'm going to get. I'm going to take it out first, select the other ear. Okay, so I'm just going to angle my perspective and create UVs based on camera again. So this is what I'm going to get. Then I would do my selection. Okay. Okay, so once I've selected the edges, cut it. Right. And now I'm going to use my UV shell tool and take out to separate the pieces between the front and the inner ear. Okay, So the first of all, what I'm gonna do is to work on the inner ear. Select one of them and hit unfold. Okay. So I'm gonna do it based on whichever horizontal or vertical. It's you're gonna get the same results for this one. All right. So the next thing would be the back part of the ear. And one of the things, again, this is gonna be the same thing that would happen to the mouth area or the hoof area where it's gonna distort. So I'm just gonna show you real quick. I'm just gonna hit horizontal and vertical. Okay. So the tip part of the ear is where it's gonna be distorted because there's not enough cuts, right? So what we need to do is to create additional cuts. So knowing that this edge here is where it separates between the inner and the back of the ear, so I would cut along these two edges. Okay. So likewise on the other ear. And use my scissors to cut it. So now if I were to select this ear and go to polygons, unfold, I should get a much better result. Hit vertical. Alright. And let me just see if I can get a better one using vertical and then horizontal, because sometimes it does give you different results. So if I hit vertical and horizontal, yeah, much better results. Okay. And I'm just gonna turn it 180 degrees. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do really is to minimize the number of pieces of UVs that I have within my UV space. So in this case, what I want to do is to select one of these edges and to sew it across. So knowing this is one of them, okay, so I can go to polygon, smooth and sew UV edges. Okay. And I'm going to do the same for this guy. Polygons after selecting the edge here. Polygons, smooth and sew UV edges. And again, of course, you can always do additional unfolds. Okay, maybe horizontal and then vertical. Alright. Just make sure that you're doing it using the same methodology on the axis consistently. Alright. So now that I've my 2 years, okay, I will need to fix up the head. Sorry, the different body parts to turn it into a nice looking rock-like set of UVs. So first of all, I will deal with the tail. It's the easiest of them all. So if I select the edge, okay, it's going to highlight and tell you that these two edges will match. So just to make sure that you might want to select a few edges to see the opposite connecting edges to check whether they are of the same side. Usually if they are the same color, they would be on the same side. Alright, so once you have determined they are on the same side, you can now select the edges. Alright, polygons, move and sew UV edges. Okay, so there we go. Tail to the torso. And now for the legs. So for this hind leg, same deal, move and sew UV edges. And immediately I'm gonna see some overlapping UVs. this is where you can either use an unfold later, or most of the time what I do is really I will just fix it first. Okay, because really it's not gonna take that much time anyway. So whoops. Alright, so the next one will be this guy here. Okay, so make sure the edges are correct. Alright, polygons, move and sew UV edges, right? And then start fixing the overlapping UVs. Now, there's bound to be distortions on your UVs, so do not be overly engrossed in trying to fix your UVs. Okay, so select the UVs again, sorry, the edges again, and polygons, move and sew UV edges, fix the UVs. So as you can tell, I'm not trying to make my UVs perfect, but this would give me a good guideline on how I can really go about doing it. So again, move and sew UV edges and just fix up the UVs. Alright. Okay, so now to the head. And for the head itself, really you will want to make your own judgment as to how much seam you want to show. And of course we want to show as little seam as possible. Okay, so I'm just gonna select that. Polygons, move and sew UV edges. Okay, and I can tell that there's gonna be distortions here, and I'm not gonna be too worried about that at this point of time, because I'm gonna select this entire piece here. Okay, and worked out another unfold. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit vertical and horizontal. Okay, so now that's much better. I'm still gonna get some distortion, but it's gonna look much better. And like I've mentioned before, distortions are not gonna be inevitable, so we're just gonna make do with what is best. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do is to put them in the UV, the square UV space of 0 to 1 in the X and Y UV, right? But looking at our checker, this is not going to be proportionally correct. So one of the things that we can always do is to select this instead of again using our best judgment to move the years. What I'm going to do instead is to select all the UVs, go to polygons, and look for layout options. Okay, so by default this is what you're going to get, right? So we are just going to look at prescale, and we're going to select objects and hit apply. So once we do that, we are going to see a couple of stuff. The years would be scaled accordingly to the entire UVs. So most of the time what I would prefer to do is to put the years either together or side by side. Really don't really matter, since we have ample space in this UV square. Okay, so the next thing is the thing that we want to fix is, because this is going to be very close to the point, very close. So what we want to do is to scale in a little bit for bleeding purposes. Okay, so just scale a little bit to give it some space, some breathing space. Alright, so this is how we get to turn to get a nice UVs, and of course it can be definitely be much more optimized, like this area here. I can do it more, but this is kind of like a quick demonstration on how you can really unfold an organic creature, or even if you want to try it on humanoid characters. This is if you want to spread it in such a rock looking UVs, this is the way to go. Alright, other than that, thank you for watching.